Hello, and we're live yet again. And this is my author's chat of the week, and I'm going to keep my eye out for my co-host to see. He's already online. Perfect.
Hi there.
Oh, how are you? I'm gonna adjust.
Doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Long time no see.
Yeah, long time. The last time I saw you, you were at Dragon Con and in costume and everything. Well, I mean, I've
Yep.
seen you on here, but
Yes, and we got to talk on our panel, and that was fantastic.
that was so much fun. I am looking forward to next year. Haven't heard anything yet, but I will definitely keep you posted.
Thank you. But yeah, I wanted to kind of just reconnect since we haven't done one of these since I don't know. It's been a long moment.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago, but we have some folks coming in. Hi there. But yeah, so glad you asked me to do this. I was excited to see the message from you and to connect again and to catch up.
Yeah, no, one of the I mean, you since we've done this before, you know the whole shtick, but for anybody who doesn't know you, you want to talk about your book briefly before we move on to other things?
Yeah, I have a copy of it sitting here. So, oh, you have one too. Is that the one I signed?
Yes.
The book that you signed is out of reach. It's right up there. I could probably jump up and grab it.
That's why I have my billboard behind me now.
You have such a great background. I actually am working on maybe changing my background, which I think some people are going to be upset about because they're so used to my plain closet door back there and everything. But I'm in the process of rearranging my office so that I can actually have a good background. So
I like it. I mean, everybody has their own thing, and it's interesting. Like when you watch book talkers, some of them vary it, and some of them I can like skim really fast and then stop because I can just see like the background and just know who's about to speak just because of their setup, be it a bookshelf set up in a specific way, or your background too. So that's
yeah,
part of the
so
whole shit.
it'll take some adjustment. I'm going to shock some people by changing things up, but yeah, it'll probably be in January when I get that going. But yeah, I absolutely can talk about the book a little bit. This is the first book in my series. It's Akathar's Greatest Trick, and it's backwards because of TikTok, but it's the first book in my epic fantasy Teshavar series. And Teshavar is the realm where the series takes place. It's a fantasy realm where magic exists but is outlawed. It's ruled by an ancient tyrant sorcerer who has outlawed magic. And Akathar, in the title here, is the most famous stage magician in Teshavar. And so he's a stage magician in a realm where real magic exists but is outlawed. And he draws the attention of some of the wrong people associated with the Empire, and some mage hunters come to investigate him, and all kinds of things sort of develop from that point forward. So that's the first book in the series, Akathar's Greatest Trick. And there's also the prequel novella is available for free. It's called The Gem of Tagath, and I'm giving that to anyone who signs up for my newsletter. And I'm almost finished with the first draft of the book after Akathar's Greatest Trick now, so that should be coming soon.
Yes, no, I mean, I've been following your feed this whole year, and I understand because I know kind of like you expect things are going to go a certain way at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, it's never what you expect, and it could be better or it could be worse or it could be just again something in the middle of the road. And I expected I was going to be a little further along with my writing than I am.
Yeah, I relate to that so well. I was expecting to have this new book out by now. I was expecting to have an additional smaller book out by now. I was expecting to have audiobooks for both Akathar's Greatest Trick and The Gem of Tagath out by now. All this stuff, and then TikTok happened, and that totally derailed everything.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, that's one of the questions I asked on a different platform for writers and authors was how do you manage your time? Because I mean, a lot of us have other jobs. I'm blessed that that's not the case for me necessarily, but a lot of us have other jobs, and then you have to find the time to write, but then you have the time to edit, and then you have to market your work, and there's a lot of prepping and planning on all sorts of things in between, and it's hard to try time management. So how are you?
Mhm.
How is that going along for you and your career?
Not well at all. It's not well at all. When I wrote the first book, I didn't have any kind of audience at all. I didn't have any expectation of anything, and I was just writing it to see if I could write it. And my day job is that I'm a voiceover artist, and so I work from home and do recordings, that kind of stuff. But I was just writing this book along. I made really good progress on it. I wrote the first draft in like 6 months, and then I edited it and did all that stuff, published it. And then I started working on the second book, and my pacing was still good. Then in January of this year, I discovered TikTok. I came to Book Talk, and my account started growing really quickly at that time. And I was thinking, oh gosh, this is the opportunity for me to build a following, for me to get readers, because nobody cared about the book before that. It was published, and it was barely moving copies. And when I came here, it started selling. And so I focused a lot on growing my community here. So it wasn't like the year didn't was not productive. It wasn't like I didn't make progress. I definitely grew my brand here. I grew my community. I made lots of friends, and lots of networking and lots of opportunities came out of that. But just as far as being able to balance it with the writing, it took me a really long time to figure out how to do that. And I still am not really good at it. I'm not making the progress I want to, but I am better than I was earlier this year. Earlier this year, it was just, oh, I've got to make a TikTok video. Can't write today. Got to do TikTok. Got to do this and that. And I was, at one point, I was doing like 3 lives a week. It was too
Yeah,
much.
you got on this and then you just took off with it. I'm like, whoa, that's so much time.
Yeah. How do you balance it? How does it work for you?
Balance question mark. No, I mean, again, going back to the point that I am fortunate at this moment that I've kind of been able to hold myself as a full-time author with art on the side.
Mhm.
With that said, I have a lot more time in the day to dedicate to
Right.
this.
Yeah.
So that just separates me differently, and I'll admit that one from, point blank. But even still, I try to have my mornings focused on writing new material, and my afternoons are kind of a free for all of whatever needs to be done, be it advertising, marketing, uh, editing, listening to audiobooks, managing any people who are helping me at different stages, be it betas or audiobook narrators or whatnot, and take a breath, inhale,
Yeah.
exhale. But even still, I will admit that the past month or so, I haven't had a lot of time that I've spent writing new stuff. I keep saying it, and I have it
Mhm.
marked on my very meticulous planner, but something needs to be done right away, or I have something else happen, or right now I'm getting over a little head cold, so my voice is sounding scratchy, but that kind of put everything in flux for a couple days. So even with the best laid plans, things go awry, and so
Yeah.
time management, it's something that even I want to improve. That is a
Right.
2023 goal. Time management for.
Well, we'll both try to figure that out sometime in the coming year. I think one of the things that has been kind of weighing me down is that I've been writing the same book for so long, and it's a pretty mammoth book, and it's
Yeah,
very involved and stuff. Yeah, and because I've been doing it for so long, I've gone through multiple periods of burnout that I've had to kind of retrieve myself from. Yeah, that I've had to pull myself up from,
you
and
write 2 books in one, sir.
I think I do. And so because of that, the next thing that I write after this is not going to be book 3 in the series. It's going to be something smaller. It may not even be a Teshavar book. I don't know. But I need something like as a palate cleanser just to get my brain on the right track with it. But it's been a heck of a year. It really has.
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that because sometimes it's nice to step back from a project, and then one allows you to come back to it if you do need to come back to it with fresh eyes, but it also helps you kind of maintain some kind of level of sanity
Right.
because when I was earlier on in my writing, I balanced pretty 50-50 with my art because I'm a reverse glass painter and I do a lot of pet portraiture, and so it kind of allowed me to step away and kind of do something else and kind of clear my head, so to speak. But then of recent years, I've been releasing 2 series simultaneously, so I've been focusing predominantly on my writing. With that said, it's still a changeover when I go from one book of one series to another novel of a different series, and it gives
Yeah.
me, again, that palate cleansing effect, so to
Yeah.
speak.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know you do have the two series going, and I've been thinking about this myself. Everything that I've written to this point has been in this one series in Teshavar, and I have ideas for other things outside of that series that I wanted to do. Do you find that among your readership there's a lot of crossover between the two series, or is it like there are independent fandoms for each series, or do you know, or how does that work for you?
Right now, I think that there is potentially overlap because I have my original series, which is complete, and then the two I'm working on now. And so my original series is, I categorize it new adult. Some people could argue it's a dark level of young adult. But with
Mhm.
that said, readers of that might enjoy my young adult one. On the other hand, readers of that might enjoy my adult level novella series because they're that nice mix. Now, I don't know. I would like to think that I would have a crossover for all of them, but because I do vary with age brackets and from the fun lighter fantasy, clean side of fantasy to the darker, grittier side, I do think there's going to be a lot of people who would prefer one niche than another. So it just
Right.
means more marketing and more advertising to reach the different
Yeah.
niches.
Absolutely. I was wondering about that because I am thinking about doing some stuff in parallel, sort of outside of the Teshavar series,
Hmm.
to like I was saying, sort of as a palate cleanser kind of thing. But some of the ideas that I've had, a lot of them are in fantasy, but some of them are outside of fantasy. I've had some ideas for, well, it's still I guess fantasy, sort of urban fantasy kind of stuff. I've had some ideas for more traditional, like murder mystery series,
Hmm.
like a detective story. I've had ideas for all kinds of different things, and I worry that if I publish something that's like that, that the people who are reading the epic fantasy stuff that I'm currently reading, they'll like pick up if I write, I mean, just hypothetically, if I write an urban fantasy that's set in the modern world or something, they'll pick that up and go like, what is this? This isn't what I want. And so I've been trying to figure out if I did that, whether I should do a pen name, not to keep my identity secret, but just to differentiate for marketing. And I've been trying to figure that out.
Well, I hear a lot of people do recommend that, and it's something that if all my three series are epic fantasy, even though, like I said, they layer in different aspects
Mhm.
of epic fantasy, because epic fantasy is fairly broad.
Yeah.
But if I ever branched out to something like sci-fi or um, romantic fantasy or something like, a different enough niche, I would probably definitely consider doing a pen name. Yes, it's another building of a brand, but it
Yeah.
does allow readers to not stumble from one to another and be like, what is this? I don't like this, because that's not what I expected. Not to say that's not a good book, it's just not what you expect. And
Right.
sometimes that's jarring enough that people are like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Adeline
pen
here
names
says,
maybe the way to go.
yeah, we've got a comment here. Pen names definitely help target the right audience. So that's in agreement with what you were saying. Yeah. Yeah, and if I did it, I would have to figure out a way to do it similarly to what Victoria Schwab has done, because she has a pen name to differentiate her adult fiction from her young adult. She has Victoria Schwab and then V.E. Schwab as her adult stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and she doesn't do it. It's clearly her. She has her picture on everything and has her bio and all that, but it's just purely for marketing. So I would probably try to figure out something similar to that, because I would still I've built my like personal brand, so I would still want to leverage that for whatever I wrote, and so I probably wouldn't just make up like some completely different name, but it seems weird to use just like my first initial and do that or something. So I don't know. It would be interesting to figure out.
Hey, I mean, you have a little bit of time to think about that. And so, I mean, also depending on what you write, some people's pen names are geared toward that genre, especially like the romance writers. You can
Right.
like see, you can figure out a few romance writers via pen name, being like, I know what you write. I doubt that's your real name, but that's a cool name. But so
Right.
you can think about it depending on what you put out too.
Yep, yep, that's true. But yeah, definitely some time to figure that out, because I'm not by any means a fast writer. So
No, no, yeah, I understand, but you also write a very complex story too.
that's
So,
true.
it's not like you're writing one plot line. Yours is little netted and layered in various ways.
That's true. That's true. Got to keep
So
up
you need
with,
the time.
yeah, all the point of view characters and all the different stories and everything. But it's a little bit maddening being in the middle of it, but it works out, I guess.
Now, how do you keep, because again, I'm a author who writes from one point of view throughout.
Mhm.
at the moment. That probably will change in the future when I want to come from a different angle. But how do you keep all your point of views succinct, clear, very distinct?
Yeah, with Akathar's Greatest Trick, it's either 8 or 9 POV characters that it switches between, and then, but no spoilers or anything, but some of those characters may not carry forward into book two. So, with book two, there are about that many again, but some of them are different than the points of view in the first one. And to do it, I write from sort of a tight third person viewpoint. And so I write it almost as if I'm doing first person, but just using third person pronouns. And so I try to make each character have a unique voice and have a voice that is recognizable and that has wording that they would use or phrasing that they would use in dialogue when it's describing the narrative of what they're doing. So I do that, and then I also definitely keep additional documents. I have a separate Scrivener project that I use that I keep track of my continuity for the overall series, and I'll have files for each character in there that tells descriptions of them and how they talk and how they think, and different things like their thoughts on religion, their thoughts on the government, their thoughts on all this kind of stuff. And I refer back to that a lot while I'm writing. But as far as actually keeping it straight while I'm doing the drafting, starting with this book, I'm doing something different, and I have heard this is how George R. R. Martin does it too. It's just coincidental that I did this and then heard about him doing it afterwards. But with this book that I'm writing now, I'll start with a character's viewpoint, and I'm writing through all of their chapters in just one go. And then I'll go back and I'll start at the beginning of the story with another character and write through all of their chapters. And I go through and do that. And then at the end, in revision, is when I'm going to interweave everything together. And I already have it planned out. I have it all outlined what order it's going to go in. But in order to keep consistency with the characters and with the voice, I'm just writing all of it for the book at once so that I don't have to hop around from voice to voice in between chapters, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's neat. Yeah, that's such a level of plotting that I have to applaud you. So when you say you're a slow writer, it's not that you're a slow writer. You're spending a lot of time doing this, like building the infrastructure, and that takes time.
That's true. It feels a lot of times like I'm building like scaffolding, and then I add the
Hmm.
walls on the sides, then have to add all this, and then eventually down to putting ornamentation inside.
Well, kind of going to the when you were talking about how you keep all these kind of information of personalities and the things that make your character's voice and what they make them. I read a poem. I think it was like on a it, I forgot where it was, but like read a poem and it was pertaining to writing. And see if I remember, it's very short. It was roses are red, her eyes are blue, but I thought they were brown on page 52. And
that is
it just struck me, and I was like, yes, because that's a terrifying truth.
that is especially true for me because I have to keep close track of especially eye colors and things like that, because in real life, just like interacting with people, I never see and remember eye colors. I don't know why. It's a thing that, yeah, I've talked to friends of mine about this, about the fact that I don't think about it until afterwards. It's not like a face blindness kind of thing, because I can remember people's faces, but when I think of people that I know, like people I see every day, family members and everything, I cannot remember eye colors unless it's something really striking, like if it's something really unusual. But
Mhm.
otherwise, eye colors are just gone for me.
Yep. What oh, interesting. Okay, so I've been thinking about this recently, and when I write, some of the things that I always highlight are hair color, the hair type. For whatever reason, that's one thing I always go back to. One thing I don't really usually describe is the clothing, which I know other authors go into detail to the fabric weave and all this stuff, and that's something I just never really do in my writing. And I was thinking about it recently because I was reading someone else's work and they were talking about, this rich detail, and I was like, huh. And I wonder about it because if you ask me, what some of so and so wore earlier today, I couldn't write,
Yeah,
clothes. It's just
yeah,
something that I don't really, I guess, when I'm absorbing information, that's something I'm like, clothes. Unless it's a
yeah,
striking outfit, clothes. So
yeah.
I wonder if it's just the way each of us are wired, reflects in our descriptions of our characters.
Yeah, it very well could be. And I'm like you as far as clothes go in everyday life. Like I won't really notice unless it's something really striking. But in my writing, I do get pretty detailed about the clothing. The reason for that is because I have this dream in my head that I will show up at Dragon Con someday and cosplayers will have put together uniforms or outfits or something that I've described in my writing. So it's all for the cosplayers.
Hey, I like that. I like that. And it's something like I have a couple scenes here and there where I have a unique outfit enough where I kind of do a little more detail, but even still, I guess it's something that I just don't value as
Yeah.
much. I don't know. And I don't know if that's a bad thing, but it's just something I'm like, of all the things I write about, clothes, not really.
Yeah, and I mean, we all have things that we focus on and don't focus on. Like I mentioned, George R. R. Martin, he's always big on the food. Like if somebody's having a meal, it'll be 10 pages describing the spread on the table. And when I'm writing food, it's usually like they got their plate and they ate. And that's
Hey,
it.
bread and
Yeah,
cheese. You're good.
right.
Actually, that's kind of cool when authors do write about food because I think it was it was either my birthday or last Christmas. Got a book which was some chef read who loved fantasy put together a cookbook, and there were recipes pulled out of all different high fantasy and epic fantasy books. So J.R.R. Martin was one of them. There was some Salvador. There were some. I mean, there's just whatever books that came. I think a couple were from The Witcher or stuff, but like whatever food or meal or something distinctive, and it's a whole cookbook, so you can eat what your characters.
That's
I was
cool.
just like, that's just kind of cool. I have not tried any of those recipes yet, I will admit, but it's cool because that means authors have spent enough time to make the richness that a chef is like, I can do something with that.
That's really cool. I'll have to keep that in mind the next time I'm writing a food scene. I'll have to remember there someone may make a cookbook at some point.
You never know. You could have your recipes in there
Right,
or
right.
your meals.
I'm
So
definitely
you
not
never.
a gourmet myself. I'm not a good chef myself, so I'll leave it to someone else to figure out the recipes. I'll maybe just describe in generalities.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Sometimes that's all you need. That's all you
Yeah,
need.
yeah,
Okay, so let me ask you, since you're almost done with the second book of your series, what can we expect? And I don't want to do. It's hard because you don't want to do too many spoilers for people who haven't read. But what can we expect in the second book?
yeah. I am always very vague about things when I before I have finished writing the first draft. So the answer
Fair,
will sound very vague, but
that's fine.
of course it's going to be a direct sequel to Akthar's Greatest Trick. It's the and it's structured to be the series is overall 9 main books in the series, so it's going to be a trilogy of trilogies. So it's set up to be the second book in the first trilogy. So it'll
Mm-hmm.
be sort of the middle act in this first big arc. The first book is set almost entirely in the city of Clubridge, which is on the eastern seaboard of Teshavar, and it's very focused on that city. The second book will expand. We'll see a lot more of Teshavar, of the different areas in it and the land. I'm trying to think what I can say that I.
Okay, well, I'm sorry if it like put you on the spot. I was
No,
just
no,
curious.
not
I
at
was
all.
like,
Yeah, I no, I enjoy talking about it. I just I have to give it some thought to see what I want to say at this point.
hey, that's
It
fine.
Yeah, it will have the characters that you expect to carry forward from the first one will carry forward into the second one, and there are going to be some really interesting new characters, including some new point of view characters. One of them is a character that is one of my favorite characters I've created. I haven't really publicly said anything about her just yet. I haven't even said her gender until now, but she's one of my favorite characters that I've created. She is kind of an interestingly dark but not super dark character, and she's going to have a point of view in this book. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing how people respond to her.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, right now I've been working on releasing or getting ready to do the release process for the third book of my young adult series, The Jed Chronicles, and I'm at the point where I have to start working on the wonderful blurb. How do you
Yeah,
quickly pitch your book? And And that's always like that hard part. Like, how can I succinctly pitch it without doing spoilers, but
Yeah.
catch someone's attention and do all these things? And so I need to do that in preparation because I'm hoping I'm going to try for the first time to do a Kickstarter launch. So that's going to
That's
be
exciting.
new for me, but it's a something to see and try. And crossing fingers, it does okay, at least bare minimum.
That is so exciting. I have never done that myself because I don't know enough about how to set it up and how all that stuff works. I have a friend who, but I don't know if she's done publishing stuff before, but she works as sort of like a crowdfunding consultant for helping to promote that kind
Oh.
of stuff. And she's told me if
Mhm.
I ever want to do that kind of thing, to let her know and she'll give me some tips. And I've just been kind of like tentative. So I'm going to watch what you do. I'm excited for this. And I think you're going to do well with it. You're really good at presenting your creations and putting forward a really good vibe for people. So I think people will want to jump in on this.
Thank you. I need you. I need you to be on my team. No, we'll see. We'll see. It is my series that I've promoted the least on this platform, just because I feel like the followers that I've gotten thus far are more into the darker side of fantasy, and
Mhm.
this is my cleaner fantasy, my noble bright, my high fantasy, my epic, the positive
Mhm.
side of it. There's
Yeah.
so many different descriptors now.
Yeah.
But
You
with
taught me
that
Noble
said,
Bright.
I'm hoping to get some new faces and pull some new interest. And part of, I guess, that process is, getting all your little gifts, so to speak, for the perks for all the people who are doing, supporting at different levels. And so I've been working in the background to get character art, which I haven't really done before, and stuff like that. And so I'm hoping we'll see. It's a
That's so
it's a
cool.
lot of work.
I can imagine, like, I've thought about Kickstarter stuff before, and I don't even know where I would start with it. Like, as far as coming up with the different levels of pledges and the goodies to give people and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just in awe of you doing this. This is going to be really cool to watch.
Well, I can't take pretty much any of the credit because another book talker here, AP Beswick, he's the one who, when I met him, was releasing his work that way and has done very well with it. And so he's the one who's kind of helped me, giving me a few tips along the way, probably more than a few tips along the way. And it's kind of helping me set all this up. And again, hopefully it's something to try. And as indie authors, I feel like it never hurts to try things, it never
Yeah.
hurts. Because you throw a lot of things at the wall and you see what sticks.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of being indie is we're not beholden to a corporation that's trying to push other writers ahead of us and that are putting us as low priority. We prioritize ourselves and we put out there all these experiments and things that we never would be able to try if we were with a traditional publishing company. And we publish when we want to and what we want to. If we write a book and it isn't just a stellar success, we still can write a sequel to it and we can market it as a series, and we don't have to worry about a publisher canceling it or telling us we can't do a Kickstarter. So it's that's the beauty of indie. I love it.
Yeah, and well, I will just say, watching you grow on this platform has been fantastic, and you've become like such a resource for so many authors and indie authors in particular of all sorts of things with writing. And so, let me ask you this because I feel like you would have some good ideas. If someone was starting out on their writing journey, name one, two, three programs or resources that you would say or you would recommend? Your top three,
Okay,
because I know
so
you've
like
been doing one of them.
yeah, so like either tools or resources, and not necessarily like practices or techniques themselves. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Tool.
Yeah.
Let's go with the tool side of
Okay.
things.
Scrivener is the tool that I use the most myself in my own writing. I can't imagine organizing the kind of stuff that I write without having Scrivener. It's a super useful tool, and it's pretty cheap too for what you get. You just pay one time. You don't have a subscription. So Scrivener is something that is essential to my process. So I always recommend that. As far as if they were going to, I've been asked this a lot recently as far as formatting books. I always recommend Vellum as the program for formatting books, but it's supposedly just for Mac. But I have Windows, and so I was able to follow some YouTube tutorials to set up a virtual machine, a Mac virtual machine on my Windows computer. So I use Vellum on Windows, and you're not supposed to be able to do that, but you can. So I always recommend Vellum. I'm just naming software. I'm trying to think of other things. I did take the. It was pretty expensive, but I took the Mark Dawson marketing classes for self publishing. His 101 class, which I think he calls it now like self publishing launchpad, that was very helpful for me. That taught me some rudimentary stuff about self publishing. His ads for authors course has not really. It was very expensive, and I have not seen that profit back. I'll say from from that course. But his course on the self publishing launchpad is what I think it's called now was useful. So I would recommend that. I'm trying to think what other kinds of resources and things have been useful to me. There are just all kinds of books that I have read for inspiration that are useful, like Stephen King's On Writing. I read that pretty regularly for inspiration. Um, the As far as my process and technique, and I know I'm going over three things, but the
Right.
yeah, my outlining process always starts with the snowflake method, and there's a book called How to Write a Novel Using the Snowflake Method that's written by
I heard
Randy
you talk about.
Ingermanson.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
say it again.
It's
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Repeat the title and the author, because I do
yeah,
need to
yeah.
write
It's
this.
yeah. The author is Randy Ingermanson. It's I believe the book is called How to Write a Novel Using the Snowflake Method. But the thing
Mhm.
that's really funny about it is I've done several videos talking about the Snowflake Method and how I like it and how I use it. And the most recent one that I did, just out of nowhere, suddenly Randy Ingermanson showed up in my comments and was like, "Thanks" or something like that. And I was like, "Oh wow!" So I guess he's on TikTok.
Hey, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I did listen to one of yours referring to that, and I was like, that's interesting. And I'm glad you brought that back up because it was one that I do need to put on my in my to read list because I thought that was fascinating. It sounds
Yeah,
fascinating.
it's a really cool book. The method is really cool, but then the book itself that teaches how to do the method is written as a novel. It's written as like I believe it's Goldilocks. I think is the story that he takes and turns it into kind of a mystery kind of thing, and uses the characters from that. And it he sort of builds that novel throughout the course of the how to write thing, but it's all kind of within those characters' perspectives of how everything. It's hard to describe, but it is a fun book to read in addition to being informative.
Yeah, no, I understand. And kind of going back to the launch pad as you were saying, or publishing 101 and the ads course, those are the things that I've also done or doing as well when I have
Yeah,
time
yeah,
to take classes in
yep,
between all the stuff I'm trying to do.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm kind of did the opposite where I started with the ads class and then I got 101 recently, so I'm starting to work through all those and have been
yeah.
enjoying it. But yeah, for the ads class for me, I it was one of those things I did not see, as you were mentioning, a return right away. It did take me a lot of tweaking,
Hmm.
and I had someone I knew I was close, but I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know what I
Yeah.
was doing wrong kind of thing. So I did have another person come in and look what I was doing and give me some advice. And between that her advice and then the basis of what the ads course, I finally started figuring at least the Facebook side of things.
Oh, that's
And
good.
so, but it took a long time. So, and as they say, not everything works for everybody. So
Yeah,
it's kind of hard, and it's one of those. Ads are tough. Ads are
yeah.
tough.
I think one of the things that is my problem is I don't have as much of a backlist as you have, and you have more books that if someone sees an ad for one of your books, they go and read it, and then they will learn that you have these other books, and they'll buy into your backlist. So I think you have more potential profit through the ads than I do.
Yeah.
Whereas with me, I'm giving away one book for free, and then I'm selling one book. So if I run an ad, I potentially will just sell one book. So it's really hard to turn a profit on just one book
Oh,
like that.
I agree. Whenever time someone's asking me about ads, I say wait until you have three in a series,
Hmm.
or at least
Yeah.
three, because that's where you can start breaking even and seeing profit in my mind. Now,
Hmm.
everybody's different, and I'm sure there's someone who can do one book and bring in the big bucks. And but I do think, yes, like you said, you do need a level of backlist because you put in money for every click, even though they may not buy, and so
Yeah.
you do need to figure that balance. And so that's why you have other platforms like this
Right,
to be able to
exactly.
reach people on for little or no cost.
Exactly. Yeah. TikTok is the most effective marketing that I have found anywhere for any of my writing. Anything I tried, the Amazon ads, tried Facebook ads, tried all this stuff. And TikTok is the only thing that has actively moved books for me. And it's kind of funny because I don't do a lot of overt, like ad kind of videos. I will hold up my book and like joke about it. I'll use it as a prop in videos with like the trending audios, and occasionally I'll talk about it or I'll hold it up, do something like that, but I don't do a lot of just like straightforward ads, which maybe I should be doing that. I don't know, but I've seen a lot of people that will do like more quotes from their book over music, or they'll have like more overt stuff selling the book. And I haven't, when I've done that, I haven't had a lot of success with those videos. The videos that do better are the ones where I'm either using a trending audio and making a joke kind of thing, or where I'm just directly talking to the camera. So I've leaned into that. But even that has definitely had a positive impact on the book sales and has moved a lot more copies than I was selling before I came here.
Yeah, no, and I think each author has to find their niche and what fits them, and each author hopefully will become known for not only their works but whatever personality you put up, because that's what you do is you have your personality. And I think we've talked about it before of having your social personality or your author face on.
Right, right.
but but yeah, for you, I mean, I know a lot of people know and enjoy you because you are such a nice, caring, and person who's willing to share your knowledge, your experiences, and your know-how. And people ask you questions, you repeat it, you always are answering them. And I think the thing is, like, not that long ago, I did one of my questions of the day, and I was just like, for positive feedback, name your favorite, book talkers, and you came up at least once, if not multiple times, because people just genuinely like who you are.
Well, I think that's true for you too. I think you put out a lot of positive vibes and a lot of positivity, and I think people enjoy the way that you present and the way that you talk and everything. So, thank you for that about me. But back to you as well. I think that we both have some good stuff going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's go back to your writing. You were saying you wanted to potentially kind of feel out different ideas. Can we know any of your potential ideas, or are they just too secret at this point in time?
Um, well, I can talk about it a little bit. First, I have a comment here. I'll read this real
Oh yeah,
quick.
go ahead.
Keith says Facebook paid ads work better for me, but when considering no pay promo, TikTok is better for me. So that's along the lines of what we were saying. But as far as other things, as far as non Teshavar series stuff that I would want to write, um, it's more like I have ideas of genres that I want to write in. I haven't really crystallized anything into specific plots or characters. Something I just have an idea. And this is how a lot of my writing happens: is I will know sort of the emotion that I want to evoke for the readers, and I will try to come up with a way to do that. It's sort of emotional manipulation when I do my plotting, but it's like if I'm watching a TV show or a movie or something, and I will feel a certain way. I'll feel suspense, or I'll feel sad about something, or I'll get excited. There'll be like a stand up and cheer moment. And those kinds of things really get me going. They really inspire me. And I kind of hold on to those feelings. And that's what I like to try to gear my writing towards, inspiring those emotions in the readers. And so I have just like ideas of how I would like someone to feel if they are reading like a horror story by me, or if they are reading something that is I don't know, like I said, urban fantasy or something like that. Just sort of the vibe that I would want them to get. And I also do that with the epic fantasy that I write. Like I like to sort of one of the things I do when I'm outlining is I sort of chart out the emotions that I want throughout the book. And like there will be a point that okay, this is going to be when I'm going to make them the very saddest, and then after that I need to raise them up a little bit, and then have some sort of redemption for that later. And so I kind of outline with that. So there's not really anything specific that I have put together in my mind for what else I would be writing outside of this, but it's more that I just want to make readers feel certain ways in certain genres, if that makes sense.
Oh, I love that. And that's kind of, I think, good writing should do is make you feel something, be it a positive feeling, a sorrowful feeling, an anger, but you want them to feel something. That
Yeah.
means you connected. So that, and having a certain vibe that you want to go with, that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, and it's funny because there are, again, not giving spoilers or anything, but in the book Akathar's Greatest Trick, there are some things that happen. That there's one particular scene that whenever someone has finished reading the book and they come and are going to ask me or tell me about something, I would say probably 95% of the time they talk about this one particular scene in the book, and I know, like, I can see the expression on their face when they're coming to me to talk about it, that I know it's that. And I feel it's a scene that people get really upset about, and I feel bad about it when I know that I've upset people, but at the same time I feel kind of proud of it because honestly that was what I was going
Yeah.
for with it. So I,
Yeah, you saw Drew pop up saying cracking con friends. I'd love to see it. Hello.
yeah.
Long time no see. Now
Yeah.
now that they do those, which I haven't tried, I think it's some kind of like a group version of this
Hmm.
that's on here. I haven't never done a group version. We should have a round table one
Yeah,
day.
yeah. I did that. There is on Thursday nights. There's a thing. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Books and Beer that is hosted on here. That they have an author each week,
Oh.
and I don't drink beer, but I they invited me as the author of the week one time. And what they do is there's one host who goes live, and then the other people that are the guests come in, or the co-hosts come into
Mhm.
her comments, and then they request to be added. So they don't do their own live; they come into her live, and then you can add. I don't know the maximum number. I want to say maybe like 5 people, 6 people, something like that, can be on live at the same
I
time by
saw
doing
one with,
that.
I think, six, or I don't, not
Yeah,
this not the books and beer one, but
yeah,
someone just a little bit ago had 6 people. I was like, that's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's how they do it. And I did something like that back in June. It was on my birthday, and it was also A.R. Rose, Alex Reed's romance. It was her birthday is the day after mine. It's either before or after. I think it might be the day before mine, but her birthday is then. And yeah, Keith is saying yay books and beer, and says 6 is the limit. But yeah, her birthday is the day before mine, and there were a couple of other people that we did sort of a birthday party together, and we all got in like that and had like the different boxes that we did sort of a little birthday party.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I have to
Yeah,
keep that in mind in
yeah,
March.
yeah,
Birthday
yeah,
party, virtual birthday party. I like that.
for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
Okay.
it's just like coming in from the comments. It's not syncing up like we are, where it's separate lives. It's just one person has the live, and the other people come in from the comments.
Okay, that's cool. I haven't
Yeah,
tried that before. I'll have to play
yeah,
around with this concept. Hmm.
yeah. Have a round table.
Exactly, exactly. It's
Yeah.
always fun to get a lot of people in the discussion of whatever the topic is. Like, here's a question, and people listening in can always chime in too. What was I'll say one. Let's not I won't make you pick just one, but what was one of, not the one, but one of your favorite books you have read this year?
Oh my goodness. This
I'm a
year,
slow reader, so
yeah,
I know other people like turn a book a day, and I can't do that. But what is just
I'm
what
slow
give
as
me
well.
more?
Yeah, yeah,
So
I'm
what was that?
slow as well. I think when I'm actually reading, I'm not super slow, but it's just that I don't have a lot of time in the day to read, so
Mm-hmm.
that makes me slow. But throughout this year, I'm trying to think what it was, what all I've read this year. I know I read Eddie LaRue this year, and I really liked that a lot. The Invisible Life of Eddie LaRue by V.E. Schwab was excellent. I finally got around to reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson this year, and that was outstanding as well. Um, what else have I
I haven't
read
read
this
Ed
year?
Sanderson, and he is on my list of to read authors. I know that's a
Yeah.
horrible thing to admit, but I've yet to read him. I see Drew chiming in saying he's read The Shadow of the Gods or Legends and Lattes for fantasy, and A Head Full of Ghost for horror. I
Hmm.
like that. I
I
do
w-
want to read Legends of Lattes too. I have yet to
yeah.
read it, but that one is on my TBR list currently. I don't know the others, so I'll have to look those two up.
Yeah. Yep. And we have some comments over here too. Keith says The Invisible Life of Eddie LaRue was also his favorite this year, so he read that this year too and really loved
Ooh.
it. And then let's see, got some more comments scrolling up. He says, other than my own books, got any book by Michael Connelly. I haven't read any Michael Connelly myself, but I am definitely familiar with him, and I want to read some of his stuff. But that's sort of outside the realm of what I was reading this year. Year I've been pretty focused on fantasy or fantasy adjacent. I a lot of times will read some crime fiction. I'll read mysteries or read some horror, sci-fi, that kind of stuff. But I know another book that I read that I like. Speaking of sci-fi, is have you read the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir? It's Gideon the Ninth and Hero the Ninth, and the newest one is Nona the Ninth.
Not yet.
Okay, those are really weird books, but they're really good if you they're sort of intentionally obscure books. They when you're reading them, Gideon the Ninth is a fairly straightforward sort of sci-fi murder mystery thing about necromancers in space, but
Okay, I love
then
it.
yeah, then Harrow the Ninth is the sequel to that, and it's one of the weirdest books I've ever read. Just most of the book is in second person, which none of the first book was in second person, and it just has like all this weird stuff that eventually makes sense, but it's very you feel like you're putting together a puzzle while you read it, and you don't really understand
Okay.
anything until towards the end. And then after finishing Harrow the Ninth, Nona the Ninth came out this year, and I read that, and that once again was a book that it at first feels just disconnected from the first two, and you're trying to figure out what's going on for most of the book. But that series I do recommend, The Locked Tomb by Tamsin Muir.
I'll have to look that up. And I see a couple
Yeah.
other comments saying Legends is so cozy. That's what I've heard. You'll
Yeah.
dig shadows, epic Viking story like Skyrim. I do like Viking stuff. I write it. I like it. But so thank you for all that.
Yeah.
For
Is the
me,
is
oh
that
yeah,
John
sorry.
Gwynne? Oh, I'm sorry. I was just asking the Viking thing. Is that by John Gwynne? Is that the series they were talking about? 'Cause I haven't read that, but I want to read that.
The Shadow of the Gods.
I
So I'm
think that
pretty sure
might be
that's the
John
book.
Gwynne.
I don't know. We'll see if Drew answers.
Yeah.
We'll wait.
We have a
But
couple
yeah.
more books here.
Oh yeah,
Oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
He
I'm
said
sorry.
John Glenn. Yes, yes, John
Okay.
Glenn.
Yeah. Yeah. Nancy says The Monk's Hood Murders by Karen Menuhin. And okay, yeah, Michael Connolly wrote the Bosch books, which there's I think it's either Amazon or something. There's a streaming series about Bosch. It's crime novels. And Nancy also says Piranesi by Susanna Clark. That's one I've been meaning to read, but I haven't read.
It's good to put your list for next year. Mine is always growing. Yeah,
Yep.
no, this
Yep.
year, I guess kind of focusing the fact that I was towards the end looking at my young adult um fantasies since I was writing the third book for my Jet Chronicle series. And sorry, my voice is pitchy again, getting over the cold.
Oh, I hope you feel
But
better soon.
thank you. But I I will admit I came in kind of hesitant, but Madeline Miller's I read her Circe and I read Song of Achilles. And I came in kind of hesitant because I'm not necessarily a romance fantasy person
Right.
and I knew Song of Achilles was, and I'm not necessarily a fan of first person and her stories are. So
Uh,
it took me a little bit to kind of get over those kind of things, but I will have to say I really enjoyed her writing overall because it was beautifully written and she's extremely knowledgeable with her retellings of Greek myth. And since that's something I love, I was pretty impressed with her intimacy with that old lore and figuring out how to make it approachable for a modern audience. So I did like those two.
That's really cool. I have heard a lot about those, and for the same reason that you were tentative, I haven't really read it because I'm not a big romance reader in general or fantasy romance reader in general. I have tried a few book top recommended books in that vein. I read Akatar shortly after I came to Book Talk. I read The Court of
I've
Thorns
yet
and
to do that.
Roses. What's that?
I've yet to read
Uh,
Akatar.
yeah, it it I don't know. I always feel kind of strange because it just didn't work for me exactly because so much of it, I like the world building. I like the world building in
Mhm.
it, but the romance part of it didn't really work for me, which is difficult because it's very much a romance book.
Yeah.
so, so I wasn't as much into that. But I've read some other things like I recently became friends on here with Danielle Jensen, and I hadn't read The Bridge Kingdom, which is her big series that really blew up, and it's fantasy romance. I'm reading the first book in that right now, which is just called The Bridge Kingdom, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm enjoying that a lot more than I enjoyed Court of Thorns and Roses, and I'm a little over halfway through that, but so far I'm really liking that.
Well, after, because I read them in order. So, A Song of Achilles is definitely romance fantasy. Circe, I expected to be that same level, but it actually wasn't. It was more like the life of,
Mhm.
and there was romance in it, but it was not a. I would. It was far toned down and far less of a primary focus than the other one. So that may
Mhm.
be, if you picked up one of hers, you might want to do Circe instead, just because it wasn't romance wasn't the main plot, let's just
Yeah.
say. And Drew just said I picked up Song of Achilles. It's on in the TBR one of these days. I understand. I understand.
Yep.
Hey,
Yep.
that's what TBR is like, because I don't know, for me, I get reading moods, and every so often I'm like, I want this vibe, and it's nice to have your choice, and have
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
kind of waiting. And so I always have my rolling TBR list, but every so often I'll reach a little further down and pull out one because I'm like, I feel like this is my mood right now. This is what I need.
That's totally what I do too. I'm very much a mood reader. I know a lot of people who are mood readers will start reading a book and they'll start multiple books at the same time, but I don't do that. I'm a mood reader to the extent that I can't predict what the next book I read is going to be, but once I start reading it, I stick with it and I don't start another one because I just get like all mixed up if I do that. But yeah, my TBR list is just a gentle suggestion most of the time, and I'll hear about a book and I'll have like this giant TBR list and I'll just hear about a book for the first time. I'll be like, oh, I'll read that.
Give it to them. Exactly. I understand. I understand. But yeah, I when I read, I actually do like a lot of, be it like, I don't know if I want to say text based books, but like I like books that educate me on different things. And so for right now I'm reading one. I just cracked it open recently on how to learn how to read Old Norse. And so qualify
Oh,
that as educational. So I have a couple, like two books that are educational that are, I'm working through right now, but I always have one fun book, which is, a work of fiction, and I
yeah,
usually just have one working fiction at a time, and then I go through that, if that makes sense. So I do have
right.
multiple, but one's usually a fun book, and I can turn those quicker in my slow reading process than the others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. That makes perfect sense. And I hear, according to certain people on TikTok, we're supposed to only be reading classical fiction, or classic fiction. So,
mean, I like classic fiction, but I'm a writer of modern fiction, so you
yep,
should
yep.
read whatever you want, even if it's nonfiction. So
100% that. I've got a few more comments here. Keith says, I appreciate that, Keith. He says, for 2023, I'm sure my favorite will be Akathar's Greatest Trick. So, thank you for that. And then, let's see, we've got a couple more. Hello, Pickle. Hi. And an old book that goes Clan of the Cave Bear. I've heard that that's really good. Have you read Clan of the Cave Bear?
I've heard about it, and I don't know if it's made it on my, what I use as my virtual TBR list is the Amazon wish list now. I don't know if
Yeah.
I've actually put that on there, but I have heard about it multiple times, so maybe that's something I need to look into.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't really know a lot about it, but I have had it recommended to me by numerous people. So I feel like I need to look into that and check it out. One thing that I thought about while we were talking a minute ago, you were asking me about things outside of the epic fantasy genre and ideas that I might have. One thing that's an idea that keeps coming back to me over and over, and this is really funny given sort of my predilections for reading. I have an idea for a standalone Teshavar novel that fits within the continuity for the main thing. It would be a standalone novel still within the Teshavar series, and it is fantasy romance. So
Hey.
there's part of me that's saying I need to write that just because I have a fairly big TikTok following.
Mhm.
So, so
Yeah, you never know. I mean, that's the thing, is you have to write within your comfort zone, whatever your comfort zone is, because if you push yourself too far out of it, it won't feel right. On the
yeah,
other hand, there is something to write to please the crowd, to an extent, so, and it's fun to challenge yourself. So I have
yeah,
not dabbled in a true fantasy romance, though if one came to mind and I was like, I'll give it a try, I probably would try
yeah,
if something just felt right,
yeah,
but it has to feel
yeah.
right.
I know I wouldn't be able to write spicy romance. That's not something that's in my wheelhouse. I would get way too embarrassed doing that.
See, right within your comfort zone. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. So there is a very good potential that there could be a Teshavar romance book coming out at some point that's a standalone that will be non-spicy.
I like it. I like it. A clean romance or a mildly warm romance. There has to be a term for it.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to see what
A
happens.
cozy fantasy romance. I mean, I hear that's popular now.
It also would probably be sort of a political intrigue thing in the fantasy realm. So so we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Fade to black, yes. Oh yes, fade to black. Oh, there you go. Or the closed door scene. Yes, those are some terms I've actually heard. Closed door versus open door
Yep,
romance.
I do
Oh,
actually have that kind of thing in Akathar's Greatest Trick. I mean, it's not that's very much not a romance book, but it has relationships between characters in it, and
mhm.
it does have at least two closed door scenes where it's sort of fade to black. It's like things are about to transpire, and then we don't see them.
Yeah, I was gonna say my new adult and my young adult are like that. Like
Mhm.
any romance is very mild and everything, or non-existent, just because depending on age and whatnot. My Norse novellas, they are for adults, and though romance is not a main thing at all, I am retelling Norse myth. We're talking,
Yeah.
it's not a positive genre, but
Right.
there is going to be some adult scenes later on, and I'm not I don't consider myself a spicy writer, but there are
Right.
some definite scenes that are going to crop up,
Yep.
but they're not the main focus.
Yeah. So
It's not
you
a
got to get
romance.
yourself into that mode, right?
Romance is in it. It's not a romance.
Right. Right. Exactly. Something that's really funny. Do you know Corvin King on Book Talk? He's an audiobook narrator. That
Sounds
he
so familiar. Sounds so
yeah,
familiar.
but he's
I'm down.
part of the hosts of that books and beer thing that I was on. But he's an audiobook narrator. He does a lot of romance narration, and one of the things they do on that show is they will have him read a scene from the author's book, and he does it. He's a really good narrator, but it was kind of funny. They usually have romance writers on there, and I think I was the first non-romance. I know I was the first male writer that they've had on there, but he read my scene. It was so funny because I picked a scene for him to read that was from the villain's perspective. It was from the main villain's perspective. So it was this guy doing nefarious stuff. But the way he delivered it was very similar to how he would deliver in like a spicy romance book. It was like that kind of thing. By the end of it, Corvin had all of his fans who were in the thing just like dying for this villain guy that just because of the way he was reading it in his presentation.
That's so funny. I have a couple comments. One, Blanca was saying he is amazing. So yes, and she's also a narrator. One of mine. Thank you. And
Yeah.
Drew was saying I like throwing random romance chapters in my dark fantasies. Reader restrictions are exquisite. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so no, that's funny, and it is interesting when you hear your book come alive with a narrator, what they will do and how they approach reading a line or a section, or it could change your mind on the whole thing. So that is pretty funny.
Yeah, it was great because he asked me ahead of time for any direction on how to read the character or the scene or anything, and I told him just to that he had artistic license to do what he wanted to do with it. And it was so interesting because this character that he was reading, one of the most common things that I hear from people after they read this book is that this particular character is I've heard multiple people say he is the villain that they have hated the most of any villain ever, and like
Ooh,
anything.
that's
And
good.
so he but the way he read it, I think he came across as kind of like the alpha bad boy main character romance kind of thing. So it was really funny. It was fun to see it come across that way.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is fun. It's fun. Are you sorry, you mentioned earlier on that maybe towards the beginning of this past year you were thinking about audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
I know life gets in the way.
Yeah.
I know that. Is
Yeah.
that something you are hoping to do next year, or are you going to put that on pause while you kind of continue to kind of get some
The
more work out?
Yeah, the current plan, I'm almost finished with the first draft of writing the sequel to Acklar's Greatest Trick. When I finish the first draft of that, which should be within hopefully the next couple of weeks or so, I when I finish a first draft, I always take about a month away from it before I start doing revisions, just to clear my head and to come to it with a newer perspective. And so, in that meantime, when I'm away from the book, I'm going to try to produce the audiobooks. I'm going to really get into that, and that's going to be like my sole focus. I'm not going to be really writing anything during that month. I'm going to be just recording, and try to just sort of hammer those out during that time. So the audiobooks are absolutely my very next thing I'm going to be working on.
That's cool. I have a couple comments popping in saying one says I'm always been an artist, but I'm getting better with my writing. I do like audio better than reading because I'm dyslexic, which that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so one of
absolutely.
those things is like when you get audiobooks out there, you can reach a wider range of people who, you know, for whatever
Hmm.
reason, that's their
Yeah.
preference, and that's kind of cool. So you could potentially reach a whole new cast of people.
I love that thought. And I've been getting requests for the audiobooks all year since I've been here on TikTok. I've been getting people asking for it, and I want to get them out there so badly, but I also want to record them myself since I am a voiceover artist myself, and I have like particular ways that I want things to sound and to do it. And so I'm just basically a control freak. So I want to do it myself, but I'm dying to get it out there. I know that there are so many people who have wanted this story, but they are not interested or able to read the text version, the physical like book version or the ebook version, that they really want and need the audiobook. So I'm super excited to get those out there, and I'm kind of nervous about it because I typically, even though I do voiceover work, I don't typically do audiobooks. So this is an area that I don't normally work in, but I'm both excited and kind of nervous about it.
Well, that would be cool. And I have another comment saying I want to do my own too. So there you go, different authors having that comfort zone. And that's the thing is, as much of a control freak as I am with most of my stuff, I am not confident of doing my own audio because there's the sound editing and all that other things that I don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the few things that I'm comfortable letting someone else do as long
Yeah.
as they're okay with me being like, can we change the way you say this or that? And I'm
Yeah,
sorry
totally.
I'm bugging you yet again, but I did. So we'll see how much my narrators are put up with me or how long, but I'm comfortable with them
Yeah.
putting out high quality work.
That's great. And Keith here says DIY audiobooks would definitely be more affordable to do. And then he says, "Too bad I hate my voice." I when I first started out recording stuff, I hated my voice, and I got used to it over time. Our voices sound different to us than they do to other people, and they sound different always than how we think our voices sound. And so it took me a while. It took me probably 6 months of doing voiceover work before I got used to my voice. And at that point, I started sort of training myself and getting better at it. So it's definitely something you can train and can work towards.
That's that's amazing. And I have a couple other comments coming in. One saying, "Oh yeah, it's okay," referring to the fact I think that I'm not comfortable with that. And then Blanca, one of my narrators, saying, "Any narrators love direction and input. Thank you for saying that. You make me feel better." But yeah, so would you want because you have many points of view, and it's always interesting of, when I ask these questions, do you want a male narrator, female narrator, different narrators to do the different voices? I mean, how have you thought about that?
Yeah, in a perfect world where I had unlimited resources, I would have someone else narrate each of the point of view chapters. I would have sort of an actor for each character that would present their scenes and their chapter and everything. But that's just not practical to where I am right now, and so I'm planning to read the whole thing myself, and I'm not going to try to do sort of intense character voices, but just sort of getting into the characters' flow and sort of just sort of their rhythm of speaking and things like that. I feel like I can do that, but yeah, in a perfect world, I would have a full cast that would be doing it, and not necessarily like a radio play kind of thing, but just like if this is a chapter that's in one of my characters named Samira, if it was in her viewpoint, I would have someone who I thought could sound like her do that chapter, and then the next chapter might be have another character named Rakus. It would be someone that could do his voice. That would be that chapter. So in a perfect world, that's how I would do it.
Hey, I like that. I have figured out different ways somehow, madness, to have all three of my series being converted currently, and so I'm doing a little bit of everything. I have the female narrator, I have a male narrator, and I have a full cast. Now I will have to say the full cast one started well before the others and is probably the last one to release because it just takes that much more time to not only get all the recordings and everything, but then doing the sound editing is that much more complicated. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's taking it's a lot more time and effort to do something like that. We'll see, crossing fingers, how it comes out, but I've
Yeah,
I've liked
that's so
working with
exciting.
all of them.
That's so
it's
cool.
it's
I
fun
love that.
and
I'm
stressful.
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I know. I was saying it's fun and stressful. It's always just, but that's just, never knowing, learning the process as I go. And thankfully, like I said, I've had some great narrators along the way to help and get this stuff out. So, yay!
Yeah. That's great. I love how you've built your team there and have sort of this method to the madness that you're putting together. I love that all that's coming together for you. That's so cool.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Now, we have broached the hour, and unfortunately, I will admit, I love talking to you, but my voice is about to give out just because that whole cold thing is like, why are you using your voice for an hour straight?
Yeah.
With that said, is there anything I always like to ask? Is there anything you would like a potential new reader to know about you and your work, what you're about on this platform, where to find you, all those
Um,
important information?
Yeah, as far as potential new readers, I currently am writing a big epic fantasy series, and it has some things that it's not a typical quest kind of series. It has a lot of mysteries in it. It has a lot of twists, and the world is kind of a mix between sort of Victorian stylings and medieval stuff. It's kind of a weird mix there, but that's kind of an overview of what that is. And as far as me in general. TikTok is where most of my stuff is, most of my social media. I do videos just about every day. I do a lot of talking about books in general, about writing, about self publishing. I'm a big advocate for self publishing, and I'm always happy to meet new folks and answer questions for followers and make custom videos where I talk about topics that people want me to talk about. And also, if anyone who is coming to DragonCon in Atlanta next year, you might be able to see the two of us together once again on a panel because we did that with a couple of our other friends this year. So yeah, I think that would be a good opportunity to meet both of us.
Yes, and I also have another comment saying it sounds awesome. So you never know, you may have a new reader just because of that.
That would be awesome. I would love that. Come follow me and check out the book. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so you don't even have to buy it outright.
Yes, I have to say, I know there are authors out there who are wide for ebooks, but as a KU author myself, and knowing that's where the bulk of, at least right now, that's where the bulk of my sales comes from,
Mhm.
I don't know if I can imagine going wide with ebooks. With
Yeah.
that said, I do need to pursue that concept of potentially going wide with my print version because I've only done that through Amazon, and I feel
Oh,
like that would be a smart thing to do. Would be go because you use Ingram Spark for your
right.
for
Yeah,
paperback or one of your versions.
I do. I go through Ingram Spark for the hardcover. They do all my
Okay, perfect.
hardcovers, and then I do paperbacks that sell on Amazon are through KDP through Amazon, and then I use Ingram Spark for paperbacks that sell everywhere except Amazon, like for Barnes and Noble and for local stores and things like that. So Amazon does paperbacks for me. Ingram Spark does paperback and hardcover.
Okay, well, I may have to pick your brain about that process because that, depending on how time and life goes, might be one of my big 2023 goals. Would try to see if I can convert that way, but that's a
Yeah,
whole new set of formatting and going back through, and that's also a lot of work. I keep
yeah.
talking to myself. I'll be like, I'll do it later. I'll do it next month. I'll do it next season, next year. I don't know. I probably should do it. One
Yeah.
last comment popped up, says my uncle lives in Atlanta. I used to live in Huntsville, Alabama, but I'm back in Ohio now. Well, if you are in the Atlanta area, you like I said, Dragon Con
Yeah.
2023.
That was your first Dragon Con experience this year. Did you like it overall?
I did, but now that I've done a little bit of it, I know what I would do differently and how to approach it
Mhm.
differently because I didn't know what to expect. So it was
Yeah.
overwhelming a little bit, but it also was a learning curve. And I do need to, and I realized that if I want to go to a panel, I had to get there very early.
Yes, yes.
So I have to adjust my timing for things too, because I did miss out on a couple chances because I thought I gave enough time, but I did not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
learning things, but that was a very impressive experience.
Yeah, and for your first time there, you had a really good costume, and you were on a panel that did well, and you had a really good first year at Dragon Con.
Well, thank you. I want to say that's all due to you because if you didn't invite me, I don't think it would have been like I could do that next year.
Just keep putting it off. Well, I'll let you know when I hear stuff about this year, and keep in touch about that, and or this coming year, and hopefully we'll have an even bigger crowd.
Perfect. And I
Yeah.
know just for the heck of it, I'm going to say so. I know a lot of authors this past year, or I know a few of the authors this past year who attended the 20 books to 50K.
Hmm.
Has that been something you've ever considered? Because it is the biggest indie conference in, I think, the world at the moment, but definitely the
Yeah,
States.
I would love to go to that. Honestly, it's just a matter of sort of budgeting for it and budgeting both the time and the travel funds to
Hmm.
do it. But yeah, I would love to go to that. And eventually I will. It just is a question of when sort of the planets align for that for me.
I understand. Yeah, that's one thing that I'm like, again, if the planets align, next year is also going to be a busy year for me. But if they do align, I would love to attend that too because that would be
Yeah,
something I'd be like, just take my notebook and be like, I'm old school notebook, and be like, let
yeah,
me learn all the things.
yeah. That's in Vegas. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
they host it
Yeah,
in Vegas every year, and
yeah,
everybody who's gone seems to rave about it. So
yeah.
something
I would
worth
love to.
looking
So
into.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll stay in touch about that. We'll see what happens.
You never know. You never know. You
Yeah,
never know.
yeah.
Well, thank you for coming out and hanging out tonight. And again, if you ever want to do this, I do these weekly, and I always love talking to you, Jason. So
Well, you as well. Thank you so much for asking me this week. And I think this is probably going to be my last live of the year because I'm going to be busy the rest of the
woo,
month. So we're going out in fashion here.
yay, and have a
Yeah.
wonderful holiday season.
Yeah, I hope you do as well. Thank you again for asking me to do this tonight. It's always great talking with you and great seeing you. And definitely enjoyed catching up with you.
Yes, and happy New Year if I don't talk to you before.
Happy New Year to
Bye.
you too. See you. Bye bye.